Hello folks, Lord Reags with you, otherwise known as Reagan John Murphy, award-winning journalist from back in the 80s and 90s and early 2000s. I'm now retired, and some of you might know me as the horse racing tipster, the best value tipster for Sydney race meetings Saturdays in my competitions, my friendly competitions with Sydney racing media. I've got a very important message to share with you. This Saturday is the 27th day of February 2021, and I am a Christian, as many of you are Christians, and many people often say to me, how can you be a Christian and gamble on horse racing? Right? Well, that's a very good question. A lot of people don't gamble on horse racing, and they're involved in the horse racing industry, and they're just as devout a Christian as the next person is in the congregation at your church. But it's been their livelihood, and it's been their parents' livelihood in many instances, and in some cases it's been a dynasty, like in the Bart Cummings family. They have generations of horse racing, and the Waterhouse family. They're Christians, and they are involved in horse racing. Now, over my shoulder to the right, you can see a story I did on Burnham, who 2 decades ago claimed Great Britain for the Aborigines of Australia. That was one of my stories for the St George and Sutherland Shire Leader, one of the local newspapers I used to work for, and I was with them for about 9 or 10 years. And but I got my start as a journalist from greyhound racing. My grandparents had 55 rescued greyhounds, not rescued, they were giveaways, too strong a term that, and they saved those dogs from being put down. And they got some of them to race, they got some of them to win, they got some of them to get to invitation class at Harold Park, and some of them even broke track records at 5 years and 2 months, but I digress. I'm here to tell you about the National Day of Prayer, this Saturday, February 27, which coincides with the Royal Randwick race meeting. Now, before you get out to Randwick, I would implore you to take part in the National Day of Prayer, because it's very important. And I'd like you to go online and look it up on your Google, because Australia is back in bed with Google now, in a platonic sense, business-wise, strictly business. Separate beds probably, with one foot on the floor. The National Day of Prayer, look it up on your Google to find out all the details about this National Day of Prayer in Australia. It's very important. I'd like you to take part in it. One of the things I tell people when they have a go at me about, well, they don't really have a go at me. They know I'm a Christian and they just don't go there. They know that when I'm supporting the Seventh-day Adventurers, as I call them in Scone, I spend 3 or 4, sometimes 5 hours with them in the mornings and then head out to the race meeting on the Saturday afternoons. That's been my life for many years, and nothing's going to change that. I still have a good deal going with the Lord. The Lord understands, and the Lord gives me a pass. This is not about me. This is about every Christian in Australia, because it's a very, very important time in our lives right now with this pandemic and people that are having conflicting views about many different topics, ranging from vaccinations to politics. There's some great upheaval in whether or not kids should go to school or not. So we need to heal as a nation and as a planet. So please plug in to the National Day of Prayer this Saturday, February 27. There's nothing more powerful than group numbers all praying at the same time. Because back in February, it was January last year, we broke the drought. I firmly believe it was our National Day of Prayer on a Friday at 6 p.m. in January of 2019, I beg your pardon, where we all fervently, and the word is fervently, prayed for rain, and not just occasional rain, but a heavy downpouring of rain. And lo and behold, it did come. And it came, and it came, and it came, praise the Lord. So this Saturday is your chance to get involved. If you're in the horse racing industry, drop everything, take 5 minutes to look this up online, the National Day of Prayer, find out what time we can all pray together for a more united Australia, a more joyful nation, a more Christian planet, and a plea for understanding in a very complicated society. Now, other people from the horse racing industry who will be involved: Reverend Colin Watts, Brother Dan Stafford, Vicky Walker, a chaplain, Father Tom Stevens. These are all ministers or people who are very religious who are involved in the horse racing industry in Australia. Father Tom Stevens, Chaplain Bob Pryor in Canberra, Chaplain Mark Bartimoti, I hope I pronounced that correctly, out at Dubbo, David Seymour at Grafton, Keith Long at the Hawkesbury, Reverend Ian Johnston, Muswellbrook and Scone, Brendan and Fran Hochschild at the Gold Coast, Jeff Vines in Queensland, Reverend Ross Elwood down in Hobart, Tasmania, Reverend Phil Zamagias in Darwin, Philip Wolford in Victoria, and we've even got Reverend Chris Moroney at Menangle and now retired Reverend Paul Bayliss. These are people who are devoted not just to the Lord and the Bible, but to horse racing. And you need to get off your bums and find out why so many horse racing people are Christians. Why do we believe in God? Find out why. This Saturday, February 27, 2021, National Day of Prayer. Do yourselves a favour. Take a knee for the Lord. Take a knee for the Lord. Now, I had a second great-grandfather who was a reverend. His name was Reverend Stanhope, over in Gawsworth in England. He was a reverend for not just 10 years, not just for 20 years, not just for 30 years, not just for 40 years. He was 40 years at Gawsworth, then he was 20 years at another church. But he was I think he was about the third great-grandson of King Charles II. So that's my lineage. And because of that, I had a little bit of a pilgrimage. In 2019, I went to Westminster Abbey, and I was part of a very large service during the Brexit upheaval, when all the big voting was taking place on that. And I was very touched by the minister's moving service that day in London at Westminster Abbey. And as a result of that, in which he had a very moving national prayer also for the Prime Minister, who was at the time Theresa May. And the whole congregation, didn't matter what your politics were, everyone in that church, Westminster Abbey, were praying for Theresa May, the Prime Minister. And I thought that was the most beautiful thing. And I brought that back to Australia with me. And I changed my religion. I renounced my Catholicism as a result of that service. I became Anglican after 60 years, because half my family anyway is Anglican, going way back to King James, and the King James Bible. I'm plugged into that. So this Saturday, do the right thing by yourself, do the right thing by your family. Get involved with this very important, this vital National Day of Prayer in Australia. And thank you for listening to Lord Reags of Oz.